And welcome, team, to the School Sport Victoria vlog series. School Sport Victoria, SSV, is the peak body of school sport in Victoria. SSV is the subcommittee of the Department of Education and Training. School Sport Victoria is a merge of the Victorian Primary School Sports Association and Victorian Secondary School Sports Association that occurred in 2009 and was established the 1st of January 2010. The two member associations have steered a school sport program for over 2,300 Victorian schools. These two associations existed for 100 years, providing an ongoing inter-school sport program for Victorian students. My name's Andy Hare. I've been associated with School Sport Victoria since 1996, and I'm currently a regional coordinator. Today, I have the absolute joy in being joined by Ben Dew to discuss his view on health and physical education and sport. Welcome, Ben. Really always awesome to talk to you.
G'day, Andy. How you going, mate? Always a pleasure. We've managed to catch up on many occasions since teaching together, so it's always a pleasure to have a bit of a chin wag to you, whether it's in the office or on the highway driving back down the coast to Bowen Heads. So it's always good.
Now, just looking behind you, you're not in a school anymore, Ben. Tell us a little bit about where you are.
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. I've moved on a little bit from the days where we shared a tiny little office at the Link at the gymnasium at Leopold Primary School. I'm now in a role with Tennis Australia, so really excited and looking forward to the next few years in this new career. I'm still dealing with schools and education, and in particular competitions, as my new role is the National School Comp coordinator for Tennis Australia. So yeah, it's great, mate. It's basically a change is as good as a holiday. So at the moment, I'm loving being out of the classroom and really exploring other areas of school sport.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to paint a little picture with what you just said. So I'm looking at and I'm seeing all the glass. I'm seeing the tennis courts behind you. I'm seeing the city in the background. Can you describe to our listeners and our viewers right here the office that we shared when we were at Leopold, the size, and also what happened during summer?
Absolutely, mate. So we're fortunate enough to have great facilities as far as an indoor gym and a stage to work on and ovals and tennis courts and basketballs, and everything we had at the school was great, except for the working space, which we called the little cupboard. Okay, so it was couldn't fit more than probably 2.5 people. We had 2 of us, and then the other half was every now and again a CETA student or a work experience student would be sandwiched in between us. We always had plentiful of Red Bulls and little lollies to keep us going for sugar runs at lunchtime or through planning and report times. Yeah, and we had a lot of good fun in that office. There was a lot of great creativity, I suppose, and a lot of ideas that were bounced off each other. We're talking probably a 2, 3, 4 year period there. So, yeah, no, it was great times.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of your roles, obviously, with high performing phys ed and everything you did with physical education was the takeover of the Ballerine division with School Sport Victoria. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that and sort of make a connection, I guess, for our viewers that are sitting there and they're listening and they're thinking about taking up a challenge like that? What leadership roles did being a coordinator to give you that you're able to then take into the corporate world of Tennis Australia today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think School Sport Victoria and the opportunities that they provide for teachers and passionate phys eders, people who have a passion for sport and health and recreation. There's a lot of, I suppose, jobs out there that are transferable qualities and transferable skills that you learn through teaching, but also through your coordinator roles. I started, way back as a district coordinator with the City to Surf, which back then was called the Geelong City District. And we were lucky enough to rename and restructure that when School Sport Victoria were going through the restructure and optimise that district to be more inclusive with the biggest schools within Geelong. A couple of years as the district coordinator showed me a lot as a graduate teacher as well about how these skills can be developed, your professionalism, your time, your planning, budgets and things like that. Then moving on to the Geelong Bellarine division, which I held for 4 or 5 years there in Geelong. That was obviously the next step up. So you're really developing those skills even more, not just looking after 4 schools, but overseeing 40, 50 schools. And I suppose just the attention to detail that you need, especially with the communication and your interpersonal skills when you're dealing with parents, kids, as well as key stakeholders. And I firmly believe that a lot of that experience put me in good stead for applying for this job here at Tennis Australia, as I was pretty lucky. No one was already in the role, so I didn't have anyone to be compared to. I went in and basically just told them how passionate I am about sport, tennis in particular, but including all education and all sporting opportunities. But they were really interested in that coordination and how I've developed competitions, whether it be your summer, winter sport pathways through School Sport Victoria, or whether it's your individual type sports with athletics, and convening some of those and officiating at state level, but also creating our new kind of sports and pathways for kids. So I know we did this primary school surfing back in the day in Geelong, and over 4 years it really took off, and creating these opportunities that are quality sporting experiences for kids, that really rang through to the selection panel at Tennis Australia, and those transferable skills from a school setting to a corporate setting were really not that hard once you develop them over a period of time. So, I'm talking 10 years ago now, when I was a graduate teacher and a district coordinator. So that 10-year journey can happen for anyone. It just starts with putting your hand up and volunteering for certain roles. And if you've got a passion for it, the hard work really pays off itself. So,
yeah. I really love that, and I wanted to touch on one thing. Obviously, physical literacy is a massive phrase that's been coined all around the world at the moment, and every country has its own definition, but you summed it up right there. And the beautiful aspect of it is that unknowingly using the phrase back in the day when we did create the surfing titles and flowed on from there, we were in the search for a quality experience for kids. So we weren't looking at seeing who the best were. We weren't looking at trying to create a champion among champions. We weren't even looking to produce an autonomy elite system. We were there providing that physical literacy for the kids so they could take that experience and then know that the opportunity to do something different would come along and away they'd go. So, yeah, really, really important to mention that right there. Obviously, you have had a lot of you've mentioned all those things that you've done, and I myself am nodding along going, yep, cool. I remember, doing that carnival, and we've got teachers that are watching right at the moment too that are probably doing the same thing, going, okay, well, I'm no different. I've done the athletics. I'm a coordinator. I'm a leader. And what advice would you give to that one person that is a little bit stagnant in their role? They're doing it because they love it, but they want to go that next level. What's something that you might offer them as a word of advice for someone that has made that transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, timing is probably everything. And I think sometimes the opportunities that you may like are not there at the current day. And so especially within teaching and certain roles within schools don't come up very often. And moving up, I suppose, the ladder within a school is quite difficult, especially if you're a PE coordinator. You've been doing it for 5, 6, 7 years, and you find that, well, for you to be able to breathe new life into your job, it might look at technology and other things that excite you. I think knowing your passion, everyone's got a special interest, whether it's within education or within sport, and exploring that in all ways that you can. I think that's the key. It's great to have job security and having an ongoing teaching role. And at the moment, I'm certainly at that crossroads, whether it's something that means the be all and end all of my career. Job security is something we have as teachers, which is great, but in the corporate world, like I've found out, it can be a lot harsher. So I think being fortunate to have, the the job security. And if you're passionate about phys ed and you're doing what you're doing, keep doing it and really find out what makes you tick, and really focus in on those areas, because sooner or later an opportunity will come up, whether it is teaching within your dream school, or whether it's moving up into an AP role, or whether it's a region coordinator role. Sometimes you have to wait for people to die to get into these roles, but if you're patient enough, it will happen. And as long as you're prepared, and I suppose you're doing everything you can to stay focused on that, I think just follow your dreams and just try and keep it exciting for you. Yeah.
And that's that's so good that you said that there, is following your passion, because it makes it personalized. It makes you get up in the morning and go and know that the mission you're on is like a giant jigsaw, that we can't solve a giant jigsaw with one move. We have 500, 1,000, sometimes 2,000 moves to be able to create the transformation that we want to make. We want to be able to transform a community, and as we've spoken about many times, that to create a whole community approach and belief and drive in physical education, and get that personalised feedback from yourself as a teacher, it takes 10 years, and that's a lot of classes. That's 400 weeks if I do my maths right. No, it's not. Yes, it is. And that's a lot of classes in that time to be able to keep that driving. So one of the things I wanted to sort of talk to you a little bit about today, because you've been on both sides. You've been physical education, you've been classroom, you've taught in England with some really, really extreme environments. You're now sitting on top of the world, level 7, overlooking Margaret Court Arena, Rod Laver Arena. Pat Rafter, shoots his commercials 2 doors down. You are at the buzz end of tennis right there. You're traveling around the country, teaching teachers, running professional developments, having to listen to Mitch Hewitt all the time when he comes up with another theory. Sorry, Mitch. As a teacher, how do you connect sport and education?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I think it's probably not done well enough, probably in the past. I think phys ed coordinators and teachers are doing a better job of it now. It's one of those things, they go hand in hand and they're so integrated, yet traditionally they've been so separate. So I think that moving forward, that education, and like you touched on with the physical literacy, is a bit of a buzzword at the moment. It's definitely a buzzword at the moment, but it's something that's common sense. And I think that we've known about how important physical literacy is. And I was thinking a bit about it today when I knew we were going to have a chat, and I thought, well, the confidence of a child and the way they control, whether it's fundamental movement skills or whether it's sport-specific skills, is kind of like your fluency and your expression within reading. And I think that within reading and literacy, that's what we tend to focus on, these skills that are very a necessity, I suppose. And I think that the physical skills are just as important and just as vital for this generation, if not everyone, but for the health and happiness, of those children. But I was thinking about education, and these days, I think within sport and within the curriculum, it's been crowded for a very long time. And as I've come from a phys ed, probably 6 or 7 years into a classroom for the last 3 years, I really got to see that firsthand. And how many new initiatives there are, and how many more constraints there are to actually have the ability or the time to get the kids out to be active, whether it's for their organised PE or sports sessions. But integrated curriculums is always something that I've been a huge believer of, and being able to mirror what you do in a classroom and what the kids are learning in the classroom, and bring that into your classroom in the phys ed context, and vice versa. So I think that education needs to be more rounded. It's very streamlined to our traditional disciplines, I suppose. And and I think that physical education has a huge place there to be able to integrate some of that, whether it's that social and interpersonal skills, back into the classroom. And Yeah, so I think that moving forward, I think we are doing a better job of it, and certainly presenting at some of these ASHPA conferences and other peak conferences and things like that around the country. That I'm certainly seeing a flavour of more electives and more sessions based on that, which is only a good sign for graduate teachers and teachers coming through the ranks to try and really promote change, within their school. If we can promote change within their school, then I think that we're going to go a long way into closing that gap between education and sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you there. It's like mixing up a box of a packet of cookies, mixing bowl. Everything's got to go in, and at the end you get that right flavour. But the right flavour has to be specific to the context you're in as well, where at some times we've got great teachers that really need to engage in physical activity to counteract poor behaviour, not reward poor behaviour with physical activity, but actually be up front and know when things are going to fall off and use physical activity to defuse bombs, which is really, really important. Huey, all right, here we go. So you've been sent to the principal's office. Sorry, not again. Okay, as a staff member, you've been summoned. And you're only allowed to say one thing to the principal about how you want education to transform from this day forward. What's that one thing you're going to either ask of or be up front and say, this is really going to be a big change for me as a teacher?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I haven't had the experience in a principal's office for many years, that's for sure. But when I would, I think that relationship, it comes back to that as a PE teacher, if you're talking about from a teaching perspective, from a PE side of things, that relationship with your principal is just crucial. It really is. And it can really make or break the opportunities that you give your students. As much as you want to give them more, sometimes there's reasons for not being able to. And I think that relationship and that communication with the principal is vital. And I think, asking the principal, if you had a question to ask them, about phys ed and about sport, and it would be just for them to reflect on their own childhood and playing sport, because I think that's one that they would be able to relate to. And I think everybody can, any human being can relate to their childhood days of their memories playing sport. And I think 90% of those memories would be happening at school. And if it wasn't at school, it was on a Saturday or a Wednesday night at basketball or a Saturday at Auskick or wherever it might be, down the tennis club with your coach and with other kids from your class. So the power there that you can drive just from asking your principal, what were your memories like of sport at school and sport as a child, and really trying to evoke some emotion there from them. And I'm sure that support there for you moving forward with whatever you like to do and the big ideas that you have for your phys ed curriculum, or if it's in a classroom as well. Yeah, absolutely. And we discussed that many years ago in the little broom cupboard there at Leopold, which was our office. The big word was transparency. And as soon as we showed the principal or invited them in or gave them our programs and really invited them to take control of the subject area, you found that the rope was as long as you wanted, and the opportunities that you were able to take then were a lot riskier, because the belief was that physical education wasn't just a sport-focused curriculum. It was actually education in a physical sense, and that what we were doing, we were able to physically allow the kids to engage in connecting all the curriculum together. So, yeah, I totally agree with everything you did there. That whole connecting the principals back to their childhood and getting that feeling of self-belief and really unpicking that, and even if it's a negative experience, getting the principals to unpack that with you and go, well, why? This is your chance to change those feelings around. Yeah, awesome. I know we've spoken about some barriers and everything coming your way, so I'm going to throw a little curveball at you, a little bit of a different one. We're talking about the non-believers here in sport and education, and they're out there, unfortunately, and it's the negative person that you sit next to. Sometimes you wish you didn't actually sit next to them.
But you've sat on the tram. There's someone preaching that that sport is no good for kids. That we need to spend more time doing other things, and we need to cancel physical education. To that non-believer, and keeping School Sport Victoria in mind, there, what's the one conversation you're going to have with them about why physical education and sport is actually important for kids?
Oh, absolutely. Now, I think this day and age more than ever, whether you look at the constraints and those barriers, and the person that's probably not a non-believer may have potentially had that bad experience and bad memories that we're talking about from school time and school sport. But I think that, yeah, pointing out some of those, the benefits, obviously you've got to concentrate on the strengths of what we do and the strengths of what we love and why we love it. And that's the interaction, obviously, and the health and the happiness that you can promote through sport for children. And outside of school, the barriers such as technology are really evident, and you only even have to look at not just children, but adults, and how much their devices are taking over their life in certain ways. But if someone can't understand that, then they're living in a bit of a cage. So, but I think, yeah, the opportunities out there for kids, they're there. It's just some of these barriers stop them. And I think that those, yeah, like I said, those non-believers that might be there to say, well, numeracy and reading and writing is far more important. That's what we should be focusing more on. I can tell you firsthand that without the physical activity first thing in the morning, I wouldn't have got half as much work done in my classroom than what I did with running around Australia relay races around the oval for 15 minutes every morning. Or, I was fortunate enough to have a real mixed bag of kids. So whether it's, you can't just come in and read to self. Kids bring a lot of baggage to school, and they want to catch up on the weekend, and they want to talk, and some have come from horrible experiences from that morning or from the weekend to do with their families or parents. So I think that the physical activity, not just the physical part, but the emotional and social part, is just you can't argue with that. It's it's blatantly obvious, and we all see it firsthand every day, in the education system. And I think those haters, unless they've got kids themselves, I think that would ring true to them, and they would see that. So, yeah,
they
concentrate on the strengths.
Yeah, exactly. And they're the people that you would probably give free tickets to the tennis to come and see what's happening, and how excited kids are. Hey,
Hot Shot Andy, I think they'd have a positive experience on our Hot Shots courts, because everyone can rally with each other and get quite competitive. So then all of a sudden they'll be having fun without even knowing it.
Absolutely. I know. I love my Hot Shots game. Played it in the court a few times. There's no bent rackets in my house. Hey, I've got one last thing for you, and I haven't pre-prepared you with this one. So might be made up, but I'm hiring a billboard on the Melbourne Highway. I'm glad you agree with that, and it's on behalf of School Sport Victoria, believe it or not. So on that sign, School Sport Victoria have said to me that Benju is allowed to put a catchphrase. We're going to put a couple of pictures up there, but that catchphrase is something that really represents your thoughts about school sport. And I'd like to know, on the fly, what's that catchphrase going to be?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Absolutely. Well, as you know, I'm someone who's likes punchy catchline, something short and sharp. So I'd probably put something like quality over quantity.
Ooh, well,
that would be my little go-to catchphrase. So,
and what little picture might represent up there as well? Because most of us are visual learners. We're going to read it, but we're also going to connect with the picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a bunch of kids all talking around in a group. Maybe it might be a half time during a game, or it could be between matches or something like that. Might have an orange peel in the mouth, or celebrating as a group. And I think that team aspect there would ring true to a lot of kids, and the adults looking at it saying, well, that's a quality sporting experience. And I want my children to be a part of it. So
really love that. That is a great one, and I'm going to submit that to School Sport Victoria, and we're going to get that up on the Melbourne Highway. So you might have to drive once in a while so you can see it. Hey, Dewey, always a pleasure to catch up with you. We're going to leave it there today, and really just an absolute pleasure for you to be able to take time out of a busy day, be in the glass office on level 7, up there at Tennis Australia. You are doing amazing jobs, and I love catching up with you when we do. We'll be able to catch up more, hopefully, at some conferences coming up. But keep plugging away, keep pushing Hot Shots as a really cool new game that has no barriers whatsoever. You know, if you can hold a racket when you're still in your nappy, to hold a racket when you're 90 years old, still in your nappy, I'm pretty happy with that. And I just, as I said, I really appreciate you giving up the time this afternoon to be able to have a chat.
No worries at all, Harry. It's always a pleasure to catch up, and yeah, loving seeing you and catching up with all the great things you've been up to. And yeah, hopefully, you know, we'll cross paths again, you know, around the country, or whether it's back in Geelong. And yeah, chew some fat and tell some stories. So it's always great, mate, and I really appreciate the time.
No problems at all. School Sport Victoria, thanks you. Great work, Dewey. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Andy. See you guys.